Let's just go.
Name?
Hey, let's go.
What's his name? It's not a gun. It's a taser, and he's under arrest, and I have the authority to use force to effect an arrest.
What is he under? What are you doing?
Yeah, like videotape this.
Hey,
Videotape.
What are you doing?
What are you guys
What are you
doing?
guys doing?
You are under
Why are you
arrest.
grabbing
What are you
me?
doing?
Why are you guys grabbing me? Like, why are you guys grabbing me?
What are you
Whoa,
doing?
whoa,
What are you
whoa,
doing?
whoa, whoa. Hey, orcs.
Not pulling, okay? Get on the f***ing ground before you taser.
Why are you?
Two female cops couldn't take down a single guy on ice skates who is not fighting back. I mean, he is clearly resisting arrest, but he's not attacking them like they are attacking him. He just kind of stood there and took it like it didn't hurt. He didn't really even try that hard to get away. Like, do they realize how bad this could have gotten if this guy actually fought back? Anyway, this video comes from Calgary in the province of Alberta, which is in Canada. I hope that was right. I have no idea how Canada works. So back in December of 2020, some guys were playing ice hockey outside, and two female officers came to stop them. Apparently, the guy in question was being arrested for violating some COVID restriction. I'm not going to comment on the COVID stuff because that's outside of the scope of this video, but I do think that this scene paints a very good picture of the stark reality that is female policing. For quite a while now, there have been rabbles from feminists that we need to have more women in policing or have an all-female police force because female cops are less violent than male cops. Well, judging by the video, we can see that these officers are perfectly peaceful.
Guys, they're trying to get compliance. Okay, please back off, okay?
Hey, these.
Stop!
I thought she handled this situation very peacefully when she MMA-style kneed him in the stomach. That is the perfect way to de-escalate a situation that was already non-violent. Whatever law he supposedly broke, it looks really bad when you see someone just standing there, hurting no one, and the cops run up and attack him. The entire event wasn't recorded, but it would be nice to see the body cam footage because I wonder, did the policewomen walk up and start shouting, or did they try to talk it out and keep everyone calm? From what we can see, it looks like they didn't attempt to handle the situation peacefully at all. One of them even shouted, "I have the authority to use force." Allow me to replay it, just in case you missed it from the first clip.
It's not a gun. It's a taser, and he's under arrest, and I have the authority to use force to effect an arrest.
What is he under?
Just because the government said you could use a taser doesn't make it moral. There was no reason to use force here. He wasn't hurting anyone, and he didn't even attack the cops after they attacked him. Every violent interaction has the potential of someone either being severely injured or dying. Force should be a last resort. But mainstream media has made all of these claims that women are less violent as police officers. Well, considering that they lie about how often women initiate domestic abuse, I'm a little skeptical. Let's look at the numbers that prove women make less violent officers. But first, if you like the content on this channel, then consider making a donation. Viewer support helps keep me independent, and it helps fund a lot of the quality improvements that I make on this channel. Links to my PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar pages can all be found in the description. And also, don't forget to support me on Alt Tech. Links to my Bitchute channel, my Odysee channel, my Minds page, and my Parler page can be found in the description as well. Alright, here's some data by the Pew Research Center. Pew says that by self-report, 22% of female officers say they have physically struggled with a suspect in the past month, versus 35% of male officers saying they have physically struggled with a suspect in the past month. Certainly that is less, assuming that their unverified reports are accurate, but I have a question. Is it possible that women were sent to less violent calls because they are physically weaker? It's clear that police departments in America believe that. Here's the fitness test that you are required to take to get into the Los Angeles Police Academy. The minimum passing score is marked in blue. As we can see, to pass, women don't even have to do half as many push-ups as men. Keep in mind that men weigh more, so not only do men do more reps, but they are pushing up more weight. Men are also required to be faster than women on both the 300-meter sprint and the 1.5-mile run. The difference is not as great as the push-ups, but it's still a big deal considering that a lot of suspects run and the women might not be fast enough to catch the suspect. But wait, my original case was in Canada, and they might have different standards. I was unable to find the fitness standards for Calgary, but the Calgary Police Department uses fitness standards that are meant for the entire province of Alberta. I found the fitness standards for Edmonton, which is also in Alberta, and surprise, the fitness standards are significantly lower for women in every area except for planks. So could it be that women are being sent more often to calls where the suspect is less likely to put up a fight or run away? The Pew data sort of suggests that. It says that male officers are 9% more likely to be verbally abused by a citizen than female officers are. That could be because they are being sent to more intense situations, and it might make up for some of that 13% differential in the statistic I gave earlier. Looking at further data, it says that men are almost 3 times as likely to have fired their weapon while on duty, which I think is the far more damning evidence that they are being sent to more violent calls than women are. Personally, I think it would be very intellectually dishonest if you were to say that female officers are more peaceful than male officers without factoring in the type of cases they go to. Because if you were to say that 3 times as many male officers have fired their gun on duty because they are going to 3 times as many violent calls, then based on the previous numbers, it might mean that female officers are more violent than male officers. As I said earlier with domestic violence, much to the displeasure of feminists, we know that women initiate physical violence in relationships about as often as men do. So I see no reason that a company like the Washington Post should cite this Pew study as proof that female officers are less violent, particularly when the reference links they use to make their other claims lead to nothing. Oh great, we have a study that controlled for officer assignments. Click the link, it leads to a search engine and not a research paper. It actually took me quite a bit of effort to find the research the author was referencing, which no regular person reading the article would have made, and the full text cost $45 to get access to. No one is going to pay that just to check if the research is valid, and as far as I can tell, neither did the Washington Post. The Washington Post writer never references any data from the article and appears to only state information that can be directly found in the abstract. Abstracts are just a summary of important findings, and it's not proper research methodology to only read the abstract. You need to actually look at how the researchers made their findings. How about this reference on empathy? It also doesn't directly lead to a study, but instead a login page that, as far as I can see, you can't get access to unless you are a member of Georgetown University. Real honest to make a claim and then make it impossible for readers to fact-check you. It gets worse. The author, who is a law professor at Georgetown, makes a claim saying that decades of research show female officers can handle hostile and violent suspects as well as their male counterparts. Then it links to a 150-page PDF file with no reference to which part of the paper proves her point. Surely the average person is going to spend several hours reading that entire document to verify what she said was true. No, they aren't. That's why it's considered intellectually dishonest to not cite the part of the massive document that you are referencing. When referencing research, you are supposed to make it as easy as possible for readers to find your source material. I didn't read the whole thing, but here's something I found. On page 66, pages are indicated by the bottom left corner of the document. Do not go by the PDF file number or you will end up on the wrong page. But on page 66, it says that physical fitness tests are usually gender and age normed. This means that the candidate's level of performance is measured by standards that are relative to gender and age. Oh really? Do you mean that the physical fitness standards are lower for women, but somehow that makes them just as capable to deal with a person who is resisting arrest? Actually, it seems like they address that. In the next sentence it says, fitness tests do not have adverse impact on women and do not purport to be job-related. If you read even further down the page, the document contradicts itself by saying that the tests provide a measure of assurance that candidates who pass the test are less likely to experience on-the-job injuries. I guess being less likely to be injured on the job is not job-related. Also, how is a 300-meter sprint not job-related? If a man has to be 10 seconds faster in order to pass the test, then that makes him way more likely to catch the suspect who is running away. Look at this. The top female time barely defeats the minimum passing score for men. Push-ups are also relevant to the job, and I'll get to that later. But I bring these points up because the feminist organization that wrote this document is located in Los Angeles, California, which is where I got the fitness test from. More importantly, if these things are truly unrelated to on-the-job duties, then why are they a part of the training at all? Seems like a waste of time to condition the officers for the academy for things they aren't going to need. I'll tell you a little secret though. I graduated college with a fitness degree, and I can think of on-the-job uses for every category on the LAPD test. If we go to the Canadian standards, which includes a much better fitness test, I can think of on-the-job uses for every category except for planks. Now let me make a little proposition. It's obvious that if we want to further mitigate police brutality, we need two things. First, police shouldn't be enforcing stupid laws like imprisoning someone for smoking weed. Second, police need more training in de-escalation and on-the-job skills. Here's the thing though. You can train male cops to handle conflict more peacefully, but you can't train women to be as strong as men. The reality is that most criminals are men. If it's the case that the criminal is violent and the situation cannot be de-escalated, then a female officer is at a severe biological disadvantage. That's not to say that no female officer has ever done anything great. On the contrary, here's a video of a female officer who got shot and was still able to make the arrest. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we are talking about a large-scale population, and even though some female officers do a good job, hiring an equal number of female officers who are significantly less physically qualified by the police department's own standards is going to have severe consequences on a large scale. For example, here's a case from Victorville, California. This unarmed man was so much more powerful than the female officer that he was able to take her gun and fire it at her. Before I show this, I do want to warn you that this next clip is a little graphic, but not much more graphic than what you would see in a UFC fight. That being said,
What the?
wow, a lot of bad stuff happened here. First, you can see that the guy grabbed her wrist so she couldn't get away. This says one of two things. Either she has no training in grappling because breaking a wrist grab like that is extremely easy and extremely effective, or worse, it says that he is so much stronger than her that such an effective technique doesn't work, which would prove my main argument of this video. Second, as I said earlier, a reason they want female cops is because they are supposedly less aggressive. Well, assuming that women are less aggressive, here's a situation where that harms your ability to protect and serve. This guy is completely overpowering her because he is stronger and, more importantly, far more aggressive. Her passively turning her back on him and trying to run away out of fear because, again, he is stronger, is not helping. I don't know what police procedure is on this, but just from a self-defense perspective, what she should be doing is shoving him back so she can create enough distance to appropriately use her firearm. However, because she is weaker than him, her shoving him back will most likely not create enough distance for her to use her weapon. Being able to shove people out of the way and create distance is why it's important to include push-ups on the fitness test. Push-ups engage the same muscles. So what the female officer instinctively does instead is turn her back and try to run away. That won't work either if we are talking about averages, because men, according to the police fitness standards, are faster than women. Really, the only thing she can do here is wait for help, which she does. Now that we have established that stuff, let's point out how many lives the decision to put a single female officer on this domestic violence call put in danger. The first life she puts in danger is the person who, I assume, is the one who made the call. You can see that she had 2 negligent discharges, one of which was very nearly in the direction of a bystander. The second life she put in danger was her own, considering that the suspect grabbed her gun and fired it at her. Fortunately, he was a terrible shot and missed. Also fortunately, if you pay really close attention, you can see that the gun jammed. I understand that a lot of you might not know that much about firearms, so allow me to explain things. The officer fired 2 rounds before her gun was taken from her. Once you fire, that gun is good to go until the entire magazine is discharged. I believe the standard issue for cops is either a Beretta or a Glock, and the standard for those guns is 15 to 17 bullets, plus the one in the chamber. So he had quite a bit of firepower left. However, you can see that for some reason, he has to pull the slide back, which is something that you might do to clear a jam. He actually pulls the slide back on 2 separate occasions, so either the gun jammed twice, or he doesn't know how firearms work. Either way, this officer survived completely on luck. The next people she put in danger were the officers who came to save her. Surrendering her firearm to an assailant with a magazine that was almost full puts the lives of all of those cops in danger. Last, she put the suspect's life in danger because he refused to put the gun down when the other cops arrived, and they had to fire at him to neutralize the threat. Fortunately for him, his injuries were not life-threatening. Now, I understand the argument against the suspect where he should have just put the gun down if he didn't want to get shot at by the police. And that's true. He shouldn't have shot at the female police officer, and he should have immediately set the gun down when he was ordered to. However, my point is that it's the officers and the administration's fault that it even got to that point in the first place. The guy started unarmed. He had some mental issues, he was not acting in his best interest, and he shouldn't have been allowed to be in a position where getting access to the officer's gun was even a factor. I've said before that the ultimate goal is not to vindicate yourself in a contentious situation. The ultimate goal is to act in such a way so that tough situations like this don't happen. Imagine a different scenario where 2 male cops respond to the call instead of a single female cop. The suspect wasn't well built, so 2 average male cops could have easily subdued him with minimal struggle. No negligent shots get fired at bystanders, no cops get shot at, and the suspect doesn't get hospitalized. You don't try to remedy the problem after the damage has been done. You strive to create a system where things like that aren't an issue, particularly when it's something that doesn't require a ton of extra effort. Put 2 male cops there instead of a female cop. Or at the very least, don't be dumb enough to dispatch a single officer to a domestic dispute. That's stupid even if the officer is a man. More so with a female officer who had no chance at winning a physical fight. Even so, just having 1 male cop there instead, who is biologically far stronger than a female, would likely have made enough of a difference to keep the suspect from getting access to the officer's gun. But the big problem here is that noisy activists care more about feeling good by promoting equality than they do about saving lives. It gets even worse in the sciences because there is a lot of really essential research that needs to get done, but it won't happen because the topic has been deemed offensive. I want to know, who panics more, male officers or female officers? I have never been able to find research on that. In fact, I think we are very lucky to have even gotten the military study I talked about in a different video on combat effectiveness that said that mixed male and female combat teams are far weaker than all male teams. Considering that the military has now gone super woke, I doubt we will get a study like that again. That's going to rob us of essential information in the future because it turns out that knowing things like if a particular gender panics more is really useful when deciding who should be out on the front lines. Because when you panic, you aren't just useless. You are worse than useless because people who panic often become a danger to their own team. However, you can't just type these questions into Google and expect to get an honest answer because research has been politicized and the woke groups own the universities. So you have to know how to frame the question in the right way. When you understand where the double standards are, this game is very easy. You see, feminists want to be strong and independent when it benefits them, but they also want to be the victim when it benefits them. If you frame the question in a way that makes women look like the victim, then it's really easy to find research on the topic. Which brings us to this article from The Guardian. Women twice as likely as men to experience anxiety. Anxiety and panic are not good for combat. To add insult to injury, the research that The Guardian cited looked at 48 studies and found that this was the case globally, meaning that it's more likely to be a biological trait than it is to be cultural conditioning, which makes sense because women are the traditional caretakers of children. Women being risky and running out into combat is not good for children, nor is it good for the survival of the species. especially in terms of birth rates. A woman dying is much more devastating than a man dying. So don't be surprised when you see police encounters like this from last year, where 2 NYPD female officers face an assailant and completely panic. One officer pulls out her taser and is so panicked that she misses a guy standing right in front of her. Then she decides to run away. The other officer calls someone on the radio and then full-on ditches her partner. After that, the officer who missed with the taser decides to pull out her gun, but does so in vain because the male deli worker is able to trick the assailant out of his knife when he asks for a pack of cigarettes. In the footage, you can see that the deli worker remains calm while the female cops are losing their shit. So much for the cops. Last, I'm not going to show the full footage of this because of the graphic material, but you can look at the resource link in the description. Eventually, the officer who left her partner came back and the knife guy, now unarmed, starts attacking her. They made it outside, and she is so afraid to act that she allows him to put her in a position where he could have easily taken her gun away. She is lucky he just pushed her. Then, a bunch of bad stuff happens with other officers who are clearly not well trained, as you see one of them getting close enough for Knife Man to strike him and take his weapon. Hey idiot, you have a gun. It works from a distance. Also, during this scene where the 3 male officers run up, you can hear the female officer screaming and freaking out on her body cam footage. Last, but certainly not least, you can see in this picture that the female cop doesn't know how to hold a firearm properly. Then, one of the craziest things happened that I've ever seen in a police encounter. You can see here in this picture, which occurs immediately before the female officer fires, that there is another officer directly behind the suspect. When she fired her gun, that officer behind her could have easily been killed. I didn't catch this until editing, but it appears that the officer behind the suspect also fired his gun while the female officer was in the line of fire. In his slight defense, if you watch the security camera footage in slow motion and compare it to the body cam footage, she appears to be a little off to the side when he fires, whereas when she fires, he is directly in the line of sight. The male officer fires first and hits the suspect in the spine, which causes him to fall. The female officer appears to fire reactively after hearing the first gunshot and after the suspect is already falling to the ground. Slight defense of the male officer aside, both of these cops need a refresher course in gun safety, or preferably, both of them get fired because 1, the female officer ditched her partner while someone was trying to kill her, and 2, because both the male and the female cop almost killed each other. Luckily, everyone survived, even the suspect, though apparently he got paralyzed. I will say in this case, it's certainly a really bad idea to threaten a cop with a knife if you don't want to get shot. But at the same time, we should be striving to mitigate extreme consequences as much as possible so that criminals such as this guy have a chance to redeem themselves in the future. One of the female cops had a taser. I'm not sure why the other 3 male cops didn't have a taser. Also, his back was turned until they warned him that they were there. The 3 male cops could have easily not warned him of their presence and instead jumped him. They had to know he was no longer armed, or it would have been really stupid to get that close to him. Though with the lady cop's poor trigger finger, jumping the knife guy might have not been a smart idea. More importantly, if you are going to say that the male cop screwing up ruins my argument, then allow me to remind you that the topic is panicking. If you pay attention, none of the male officers were panicked. They screw up because they didn't know what they were doing. It is infinitely easier to train someone to keep their distance when they have a firearm than it is to train someone to not panic. It is so difficult to train panic out of a person that higher levels of the military have training programs that are designed to weed people out who respond to stress by panicking. The only true professional here was the deli guy. He should get all 5 of their paychecks for not only staying calm, but also effectively dealing with the assailant. As I said before, outside of the panic thing, these cops need more training. Protecting people from violent criminals is very difficult, and a 10-month police academy program is not enough. As Jocko Willink said in this Joe Rogan episode, the police should have to log a certain number of education hours per week so that they are always practicing and learning new things. Really, every professional should be participating in continuing education, but especially the ones who have people's lives in their hands. Even still, if they had, say, picked an officer who very well may have been half as likely to panic, then maybe the taser shot wouldn't have missed, and everyone would have been much safer in that encounter. This is the real damage that wokeism does. It deems certain ideas offensive and then puts them off limits. That kills honesty, which means now in situations like this, we can't place people where they are best situated. 1, because of quota hires, and 2, because obvious research topics are offensive, which makes it so we don't know who best goes where. There are certain things that men are more suited for, and there are certain things that women are more suited for. Because of activists, we can't tell what those things are with high amounts of accuracy. So what we get is a less effective workforce, and in the case where people's lives are on the line, more people get severely injured and more people die. Woketivists always want to talk about protecting people from having hurt feelings, but no matter how much you try to ignore the truth, you are going to meet reality whether you like it or not. Ask yourselves, what hurts people more? Saying that maybe women shouldn't be on the front lines of the police force? Or is it more hurtful for that officer in Victorville to get beaten over the head and almost killed by the suspect? Because here's what's really sick. These quota hires are going to hospitalize people unnecessarily and cost people's lives. Also, a handful of angry feminists don't get offended by their biological limitations. That doesn't sound compassionate or empathetic at all. It sounds selfish and cruel. None of this stuff stops until people change, and of course, change always starts with yourself. We cannot allow weak and inefficient ideas to become prominent because weak and inefficient ideas cause harm to lots of people. The reason stuff like this exists today is because for decades, activist groups have implemented programs and promoted ideas that make people weak. No red pen to mark wrong answers on a test. Everyone gets a trophy when you play sports. Don't fix yourself when things go wrong. You are fine the way you are. Tons of ideas and programs like these have been flooded into the culture like psychological poison, and all these things do is ruin people's lives. So, if you want to be mentally strong, you have to remove your weak ideas. Most ideas people have are crap, and every one of us has ideas in our head that make us weaker. The way you get rid of your weak ideas is you use the principles behind the scientific method. The purpose of science is to take an idea, run it through the mud, and see if it still works. You start by saying, I have an idea. That's good, but it's not good enough. You actually have to test the idea to verify its validity. But that's still not good enough because sometimes random factors allow an idea to work in a particular situation, but not others. So you have to test it multiple times. But even that is still not good enough because you have your own biases that could prevent you from seeing the truth, so other people have to test the idea to see if they get similar results. Still not good enough. Now everyone who hates your idea has to attack it with every possible criticism, and after all that, if it still stands up, you might have a good idea. Until some guy 100 years later figures out something no one thought of and destroys it. No idea in science is free from criticism. Even if a ton of scientists believe it's true, even if it's been considered an established fact for many years, criticism is the core of science. What woke activists have changed science into is, I have an idea, and then the process just stops. They stop at step 1. This is why they are so easy to defeat in debates, and it's why they have to rely on manipulation tactics and cancel culture to propagate their ideas. Cancel culture works really well when no one stands up for the person who got canceled, so if you want cancel culture to stop, then go way out of your way to give overwhelming support to the people who get their lives destroyed for having the wrong opinion. And I'm not just talking about content creators. Cancel culture has infected many corporations that regular people work at, so I mean that you need to support those people too. If we all stand together, cancel tactics won't work. Now, the reason manipulation tactics work is because you yourself are holding on to weak thoughts. If you put up with weak thoughts in your own head, you'll put up with them from other people as well, whether you know you're doing that or not. You need to start running your ideas through the mud by testing them and allowing people to criticize them to see if they actually work. That way, you can tell if they are making you weak or if they are making you strong. At the very least, watch the lives of people who have similar ideas to you and see how it's working for them. The more you do that with your own ideas, the stronger you'll become, and the more people you'll inspire to emulate you. You'll also become effective at pointing out weak ideas in your friends and family, which puts them on the path to removing their bad ideas, if you can communicate and articulate yourself properly. That takes practice, so tread lightly. Last, you most certainly won't put up with weak ideas from your enemies. After you have rid yourself of a significant portion of the ideas that make you weak, you'll become very effective at disarming your enemies when they try to corrupt other people. That's how you fix the problem. It happens at the individual level. Yes, that is super difficult and it takes a long time, but it is the only thing that will work. You can't just put your hands together and pray for your favorite politician or celebrity to save you. You have to save yourself by solving your own problems, by helping your community, and by standing up to evil. You have to make the change, or none of this works. But, with that said, I think that's enough for this video. So if you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, comment and share. If you would like to support this channel, then you can do so with PayPal, Patreon, or Subscribestar. You can find all of those links in the description. Last, don't forget to check me out on Bitchute, Odysee, Minds, and Parler. You can also find those links in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.